Commander Velrix stood at the observation deck of the Eternal Dawn, his 4 eyes scanning the endless darkness of space. The Kethrani vessel had been traveling through the Outer Rim for 17 cycles, mapping unexplored territories for the Galactic Council. It was routine work, boring work, the kind of assignment given to officers who had fallen out of favor with the High Command. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Soraya, approached with her tablet in hand. Her silver scales reflected the dim blue lights of the bridge. She was young, ambitious, and clearly frustrated with their current mission. "Commander, we have detected an unusual energy signature in the next sector," she reported, her voice carrying a hint of excitement that she could not hide. Velrix turned slowly. In his 200 years of service, he had learned that unusual often meant dangerous. The galaxy was full of things that could destroy a ship before its crew even knew what was happening. "What kind of signature?" he asked. "Unknown. The sensors cannot identify it, but the energy output is massive, far beyond anything in our database." This caught Velrix's attention. The Kethrani had been traveling the stars for over 10,000 years. Their databases contained information on every known species, every type of vessel, every form of technology encountered by any member of the Galactic Council. For something to be completely unknown was rare, almost impossible. "Set a course, but keep our shields at maximum and weapons ready." The Eternal Dawn changed direction smoothly, its engines humming as it moved toward the source of the mysterious energy. Around Velrix, the bridge crew worked silently, their tension visible in the way their scales shifted colors. Fear mixed with curiosity. It took them 3 hours to reach the edge of the sector. And when they did, every single crew member on the observation deck stopped moving. Velrix felt his hearts, all 3 of them, skip a beat. Before them, floating in the darkness of space like a sleeping giant, was a ship. But calling it a ship felt wrong. It was a monster, a titan, a thing that should not exist. The vessel was easily 20 times the size of the Eternal Dawn. Its hull was dark, almost black, with sharp angles and aggressive lines that spoke of violence and destruction. Massive weapon ports lined its sides, each one large enough to swallow a small cruiser. The ship seemed to drink in the light around it, creating a shadow that stretched across the stars. "By the Ancient Ones," Lieutenant Soraya whispered. Her scales had turned completely white, a sign of pure terror among her people. Velrix could not respond. He simply stared, his mind struggling to process what his eyes were showing him. The ship bore no markings he recognized. Its design was completely alien, unlike anything created by the 37 known spacefaring species of the galaxy. It was brutal, efficient, built for one purpose and one purpose only: war. "Commander," the sensor officer called out, his voice shaking. "I am getting readings. The energy output from that vessel is— I must be reading this wrong." "Report." "Sir, that single ship is producing more energy than our entire home fleet, combined." Velrix felt cold. The Kethrani home fleet consisted of over 400 warships, including 12 dreadnoughts. The idea that one vessel could match their output was beyond comprehension. "Can you identify its origin?" The sensor officer worked frantically at his station. "Scanning now. The hull material is unknown. The engine signature is unknown. The weapon systems are— Sir, I have never seen anything like this." The bridge fell silent again. Everyone was staring at the massive ship, waiting to see if it would move, if it would attack, if it would simply swat them out of existence like an insect. Then the communications officer spoke up. "Commander, we are being hailed." Velrix took a deep breath. First contact situations were always delicate. One wrong word could mean the difference between peace and extinction. He straightened his uniform and tried to appear calm. On screen. The main display flickered, and then a face appeared. Velrix had never seen anything like it. The creature had only two eyes positioned at the front of its head. Its skin was soft, without scales or protective covering. It had hair on top of its head, dark and short. Its mouth was small, and when it spoke, Velrix could see blunt teeth, not designed for tearing meat. By all appearances, this creature looked weak, fragile, like something that should have been prey, not a predator. But its eyes. There was something in those eyes that made Velrix's instincts scream danger. A confidence, a calm certainty that was terrifying in its depth. Unknown vessel, the creature spoke. Its voice was translated through the universal systems, coming through clear and steady. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Navy warship Unconquered. Please identify yourselves and state your purpose in this sector. Velrix found his voice. I am Commander Velrix of the Kethrani exploration vessel Eternal Dawn. We are on a mapping mission for the Galactic Council. We mean no harm. There was a pause. On the screen, the creature, this human, tilted its head slightly. Galactic Council? We are not familiar with that organization. Are you representatives of a multi-species government? Yes. The Council represents 37 spacefaring civilizations. We have been maintaining peace in the known galaxy for over 8,000 years. Another pause. Velrix noticed movement behind the human captain. Other humans were working at stations, their movements quick and efficient. They wore matching uniforms, dark with silver markings, and they moved with the discipline of trained soldiers. Interesting, Captain Chen said finally. We have only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Earth, our homeworld, is approximately 200 light-years from this position. We are exploring, much like yourselves. Lieutenant Soraya leaned close to Velrix. Commander, recently achieved? Their ship is massive. How is that possible? It was a valid question. New spacefaring species typically started with small vessels, simple designs. They did not emerge onto the galactic stage with warships that dwarfed ancient civilizations' entire fleets. Captain Chen, Velrix said carefully, forgive my curiosity, but your vessel is impressive. How long have your people been traveling among the stars? The human smiled. It was a small expression. Just a slight curve of the lips, but something about it made Velrix deeply uncomfortable. The Unconquered was launched 3 years ago, but humanity has been dreaming of reaching the stars for much longer. We have had reasons to prepare for what we might find out here. Reasons. Our history taught us that the universe is not always kind. We hoped for friends among the stars, but we prepared for enemies. The words hung in the air. Velrix understood them perfectly. This species, these humans, had built weapons before they had even met another civilization. They had armed themselves against threats they had never encountered. It spoke of either great wisdom or great madness, perhaps both. I would like to request permission to meet with you in person, Velrix said. The Galactic Council will want to establish diplomatic relations with your species. This is a historic moment. Captain Chen nodded. Agreed. You may dock with the Unconquered, but I must warn you, Commander, we are a cautious people. Any sign of hostile intent will be met with immediate response. Do you understand? Perfectly. The communication ended. Velrix turned to find his entire bridge crew staring at him with expressions of disbelief. Commander, are you certain this is wise? Lieutenant Soraya asked. That ship could destroy us without effort. Which is exactly why we must proceed carefully. If these humans are as powerful as they appear, the Council needs to know about them, and we need to establish peaceful contact before any misunderstandings occur. He began walking toward the shuttle bay, his mind racing with questions. Who were these humans? Where had they come from? And most importantly, were they friends or enemies? The shuttle ride to the Unconquered took only minutes, but it felt like hours. As they approached the massive warship, Velrix got a closer look at its details. The hull was covered in what appeared to be armor plating, thick and layered. Sensor arrays dotted the surface like thousands of watchful eyes. And the weapons, those enormous weapons, seemed to track their small shuttle as it approached. They docked in a hangar bay that could have held the entire Eternal Dawn with room to spare. Human soldiers in armored suits stood in formation, their weapons held at rest but ready. Their discipline was perfect. Not one of them moved as Velrix and his small diplomatic team descended from the shuttle. Captain Chen was waiting for them. In person, she was smaller than Velrix had expected. Humans, it seemed, were not particularly large creatures. The captain barely reached Velrix's chest, and yet, when she walked forward to greet them, every one of his instincts screamed that this was a dangerous individual. "Commander Velrix, welcome aboard the Unconquered. I hope your journey was comfortable." "It was. Thank you for receiving us, Captain." They walked through the ship, and with every step, Velrix's amazement grew. The corridors were wide and functional, designed for efficiency. Crew members passed them regularly, all of them moving with purpose. Some wore different uniforms, indicating various departments and specializations. The ship was not just a weapon, it was a mobile city, capable of operating independently for extended periods. "How many crew members serve on this vessel?" Velrix asked. "The Unconquered carries a complement of 12,000 personnel," Captain Chen replied, "along with a full Marine battalion, fighter squadrons, and support craft." 12,000. Velrix's own ship had a crew of 300. They reached a large room with transparent walls that showed the stars outside. Captain Chen gestured for them to sit at a circular table. Refreshments were brought, though Velrix did not recognize any of the food or drink. "Please, Commander, let us talk. You mentioned a galactic council. Tell me about it." And so Velrix began to explain. He told them about the ancient civilizations that had formed the council millennia ago, about the wars that had nearly destroyed them all, about the peace that had been maintained through careful diplomacy and mutual respect, about the 37 species that now work together to explore and protect the known galaxy. Captain Chen listened without interruption. Her officers took notes. When Velrix finished, there was a long silence. "Your council sounds like a remarkable achievement," the captain said finally. 37 species, living in peace for thousands of years. Earth has struggled to maintain peace among our own nations for most of our history. Your nations? Humanity was divided into many groups, many countries, each with its own government and interests. We fought among ourselves constantly. Wars over territory, wars over resources, wars over ideas. It was only in the last century that we began to truly unite as a species. Velrix considered this. Many species had gone through similar phases in their development. Division followed by unity was a common pattern. But most species had abandoned warfare long before achieving space travel. They had evolved beyond violence. These humans had not. "What changed?" he asked. "What caused your species to unite?" Captain Chen's expression grew serious. "We realized that our conflicts were making us weak, that if we continued to fight among ourselves, we would never survive what waited for us in the universe. So we made a choice. We put aside our differences and focused on what mattered: survival, advancement, preparing for whatever we might find among the stars." And the Unconquered. Why build such a massive warship if you had never encountered hostile species? The captain leaned back in her chair. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst? It is an old human saying. We hoped the galaxy would be peaceful. But we were not naive enough to bet our survival on hope alone. Velrix understood. He did not necessarily agree with their philosophy, but he understood it. These humans had looked at the unknown and seen danger. They had armed themselves accordingly. The question now was whether the Galactic Council should be afraid. Captain Chen, I must be honest with you. Your vessel is unlike anything we have encountered. Its power, its size, its capabilities. The Council has maintained peace for millennia because no single species has had the power to dominate the others. Balance has been maintained. But if humanity possesses ships like the Unconquered, you wonder if we will upset that balance. Yes. Captain Chen stood and walked to the transparent wall, looking out at the stars. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. Commander, humanity has learned many lessons from its history. We know what happens when power goes unchecked. We know the dangers of conquest and empire. We did not build the Unconquered to dominate others. We built it to protect ourselves, and perhaps to protect others who cannot protect themselves. She turned back to face him. Your Galactic Council interests me. A community of species working together for mutual benefit. It sounds like what we hoped to find. But I will not lie to you. We will not enter any alliance from a position of weakness. If the Council wishes to establish relations with humanity, it will be as equals, nothing less. Velrix nodded slowly. He had expected no different. These were not a species that would bow or submit. They had spent their entire existence fighting, struggling, surviving. They would not stop now. I will bring your message to the Council. They will want to meet with you properly. Diplomats will be sent. Treaties will be discussed. We welcome that. But know this, Commander. The Unconquered is not our only ship. It is not even our largest. Our fleet grows every day. Whatever happens between our peoples, humanity will not be caught unprepared. As Velrix prepared to return to his shuttle, he took one last look around the massive hangar. Human soldiers stood at attention, their weapons gleaming. Fighters and shuttles filled the bay. Everything was orderly, powerful, ready. He thought about what Captain Chen had said. This ship was not their largest. Their fleet was growing. In just a few years, humanity had gone from a single planet to building monsters that could challenge entire civilizations. And as his shuttle departed, as the Unconquered grew smaller in the distance, Velrix could not shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change forever. The humans had arrived, and they had come prepared for war. The Grand Council chamber on Kethros Prime had never been so silent. 300 representatives from 37 different species sat in their designated positions, arranged in a massive circular amphitheater that had witnessed 8,000 years of galactic diplomacy. They had debated wars, signed treaties, and shaped the destiny of trillions of beings. But today, they simply stared. On the central display, rotating slowly, was a complete scan of the human warship Unconquered. Every detail that Commander Velrix's sensors had captured was now visible to the assembled delegates. The massive hull, the countless weapon systems, the engine output that defied all known physics. High Chancellor Morath of the Veltari, the oldest species on the Council, was the first to speak. His ancient voice carried across the chamber like wind through dry leaves. In all my 700 years, I have never seen anything like this. This is not evolution. This is not progress. This is something else entirely. Ambassador Krill of the Dorathi, a species known for their military prowess, stood from his seat. His thick armored body was designed for combat, and his people had been the Council's primary defensive force for millennia. Let us be clear about what we are seeing, Krill said, his deep voice rumbling. This single vessel has more firepower than my people's entire war fleet. A species that achieved faster-than-light travel only 3 years ago has already surpassed everything we have built in 10,000 years. How is this possible? Admiral Velrix, newly promoted after his discovery, stepped forward to address the Council. The humans call it desperation, Ambassador. Their species spent most of their existence at war with itself. They perfected the art of destruction long before they ever left their planet. When they finally achieved space travel, they simply applied what they already knew. But the technology, another delegate called out. Their energy systems alone are beyond anything in our databases. Where did they learn such things? They invented it themselves. The humans are remarkably creative, especially when it comes to weapons. Their captain told me that their civilization nearly destroyed itself multiple times with their own creations. They almost ended their entire species with something they called nuclear weapons, devices that split atoms to release destructive energy. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The idea of a species developing world-ending weapons before even achieving basic spaceflight was horrifying to most council members. It spoke of a fundamental difference in psychology that they struggled to understand. Chancellor Morath raised a withered hand for silence. What do these humans want? Have they made any demands? No demands, Chancellor. Their captain expressed interest in establishing diplomatic relations with the Council, but she made it clear that they will only negotiate as equals. They will not accept any position of subordination. Equals? Ambassador Krill laughed bitterly. They could conquer us all in a matter of cycles. What need do they have for equality? That is precisely what makes them unusual, Velrix replied. They have the power to dominate, but they have not chosen that path, at least not yet. Their captain spoke of protecting those who cannot protect themselves. It may be that their intentions are peaceful. Or it may be that they are simply not ready yet, Krill countered. Building their strength until the time is right to strike. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued for immediate military preparation, pooling resources to counter the human threat. Others called for diplomatic engagement, hoping to integrate humanity into the existing galactic order. A few suggested preemptive action, destroying the humans before they grew too powerful. This last suggestion was quickly rejected. Even the most aggressive military planners acknowledged that attacking the humans would be suicide. If the Unconquered was not their largest ship, if their fleet was growing by the day, then the Council had no hope of winning such a war. In the end, a compromise was reached. A diplomatic delegation would be sent to make formal contact with humanity. Representatives from the 5 most powerful Council species would travel to human space and begin negotiations. At the same time, the Council's military forces would be placed on high alert, ready to respond to any hostile action. Admiral Velrix was chosen to lead the diplomatic mission, much to his displeasure. He had hoped his discovery would earn him a comfortable position at home, not another journey into unknown and dangerous territory. But the Council had decided, and he could not refuse. The journey to human space took 2 weeks. The delegation traveled in the largest and most powerful vessel the Council could provide, the Pride of the Alliance. It was an impressive ship by any standard, a marvel of combined galactic engineering that represented the best technology of all 37 species. But as they entered the Sol system, as they caught their first glimpse of the human homeworld, Admiral Velrix realized that their ship was nothing special at all. Earth was surrounded by a shell of stations, satellites, and defensive platforms. Thousands of vessels moved through the space around the blue and green planet, from small civilian craft to massive cargo haulers. And patrolling among them, moving with predatory grace, were warships. So many warships. Velrix counted at least 50 vessels of the Unconquered class before he stopped counting. There were larger ones, too, ships that made even those titans look small, great dreadnoughts bristling with weapons, carrier vessels that launched swarms of fighters, fast attack cruisers that moved like hunting predators. The communications officer received a hail. Unknown vessel. This is Earth Defense Command. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately. Velrix responded personally. This is Admiral Velrix of the Galactic Council, commanding the diplomatic vessel Pride of the Alliance. We are here at the invitation of Captain Sarah Chen to establish formal relations between our governments. There was a pause. Then a different voice came through. Admiral Velrix, this is Admiral James Rodriguez of Earth Defense Command. Captain Chen briefed us on your meeting. Please proceed to the following coordinates. You will be escorted to the diplomatic station. 4 human cruisers appeared around them, taking up escort positions. Each one was smaller than the Pride of the Alliance, but Velrix's sensors showed they were carrying enough weapons to destroy his ship several times over. The humans took security very seriously. The diplomatic station was a massive structure in orbit around Earth's moon. It was clearly new, built specifically for receiving alien visitors. The architecture was impressive, with large viewing windows that showed spectacular views of Earth and the stars beyond. The council delegation was met by a group of human officials in formal dress. At their head was an older human with gray hair and a serious expression. He introduced himself as Secretary General Marcus Webb, the leader of Earth's unified government. Admiral Velrix, distinguished representatives, welcome to Earth. This is a historic moment for our species, our first formal contact with an interstellar civilization. Velrix bowed in the Kathrani manner. The honor is ours, Secretary General. The Galactic Council is eager to establish peaceful relations with humanity. They were led to a large conference room where refreshments were served and pleasantries exchanged. Velrix used this time to observe the humans more closely. They were remarkably diverse, these people. Different skin colors, different facial features, different body types. It was unusual for a single species to show such variation. When the formal discussions began, Secretary General Webb spoke first. Admiral, let me be direct. We know that our sudden appearance has caused concern among your council. A new species with powerful weapons is bound to raise questions. We want to address those concerns openly. We appreciate your directness, Secretary General. The Council does have questions. Chief among them is your species' intentions. Your military capabilities are impressive. Some of our members wonder why a peaceful species would need such weapons. Webb nodded slowly. A fair question. Let me give you some context. Humanity has existed as a species for approximately 200,000 years. For most of that time, we were scattered across our planet in different groups, often fighting each other for survival. War was not something we chose. It was something we lived with every day. He gestured to a display screen, which showed images of human history, battles, weapons, destruction. We developed weapons not because we are evil, but because we had to. Those who did not fight were conquered or destroyed. Natural selection favored the survivors, those who could defend themselves. By the time we achieved technological civilization, warfare was deeply embedded in our culture. The images changed, showing more recent history. Massive wars involving entire continents, weapons that could level cities, mushroom clouds rising over devastated landscapes. In the 20th century, we nearly destroyed ourselves. Twice we fought global wars that killed hundreds of millions. We developed weapons capable of ending all life on our planet, and we came within minutes of using them on multiple occasions. Velrix felt a chill run through him. He had read the reports about human nuclear weapons, but seeing the images made it far more real. What stopped you? He asked. Fear. We realized that total war meant total destruction. So we learned to control ourselves, to find ways to resolve conflicts without annihilation. It was not easy, and we are still learning, but we have made progress. And yet you continue to build weapons, massive fleets of warships. Webb smiled grimly. Old habits are hard to break, Admiral, and we had no way of knowing what waited for us in the stars. Other species might not share our reluctance to use force. We built our fleets as insurance, hoping we would never need them. Ambassador Krall, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Secretary General, forgive my bluntness, but this is difficult to believe. Your species has a history of violence and conquest. You have built the most powerful military force the galaxy has ever seen, and you expect us to believe you mean no harm? Webb turned to face the Dorathi ambassador. His expression was calm, but something in his eyes shifted. Ambassador, let me tell you a story. 300 years ago on our planet, there was a nation that conquered much of the known world. They enslaved millions. They believed themselves superior to all others, and they were eventually destroyed by those they had oppressed. He leaned forward. Humanity has learned that empires fall. Conquest leads to resistance. Oppression breeds rebellion. We have no interest in repeating those mistakes. Ruling others is expensive, difficult, and ultimately unsustainable. We would rather trade than conquer. We would rather cooperate than dominate. Words, Krill said dismissively. Words are easy. Actions matter. Then let our actions speak. We have made no hostile moves. We have not threatened anyone. When Admiral Velrix's ship approached ours, we could have destroyed it instantly. Instead, we invited them aboard and shared information freely. Does that sound like the behavior of conquerors? The discussions continued for several days. Both sides presented proposals and counterproposals. There were disagreements and compromises. Slowly, a framework for cooperation began to emerge. The Council would recognize humanity as a sovereign power with full rights and responsibilities. Humanity would agree to respect Council borders and laws within Council space. Trade agreements would be established. Cultural exchanges would begin. Military cooperation would be discussed in future meetings. On the final day of negotiations, Velrix found himself alone with Secretary General Webb on an observation deck overlooking Earth. The blue planet hung in space, beautiful and fragile. Tell me honestly, Secretary General, what do your people want? Not officially, personally. Webb considered the question for a long moment. We want to survive, Admiral. We want our children and their children to have a future. For thousands of years, we feared we would destroy ourselves. Now that we have reached the stars, we fear something else will destroy us instead. He turned to face Velrix. But we also want more than survival. We want to be part of something greater, to contribute, to build, to explore. Your Galactic Council represents exactly what we hope to find out here. A community of species working together for mutual benefit. Then why the weapons? Why the massive fleets? Because we have learned that good intentions are not enough. Your council has maintained peace for 8,000 years. That is remarkable, but it is also fragile. Peace exists only when it is protected, when those who would destroy it are deterred. He gestured toward the distant stars. Somewhere out there may be species that do not share our values or yours. Species that see other life as nothing more than resources to be exploited. When that day comes, will your council be ready? Velrix had no answer. The council's military forces were designed for peacekeeping, not warfare. They could handle minor conflicts and pirate activity, but a true existential threat, he was not sure they could survive it. Perhaps that is something we can discuss in future meetings, Webb said. Humanity has experience with conflict. We know how to fight, how to win, how to survive. If your council would accept our help, we could share that knowledge. Some would see that as a threat, Velrix said. Humans teaching other species how to make war. Or as a gift, teaching them how to survive. The delegation departed a week later, carrying with them treaties and agreements that would reshape galactic politics. As the pride of the Alliance made the jump to faster-than-light travel, Velrix looked back at the Sol system, at the thousands of human ships moving through the darkness. They were builders, these humans, creators, and also destroyers. They carried within them the capacity for both great good and great evil. The question was which path they would choose. Velrix hoped it would be the former, because if it was the latter, nothing in the galaxy could stop them. 3 months after the diplomatic mission returned, the first human trade ships arrived in Council space. They carried technology that amazed the scientists who examined it, medical devices that could cure diseases thought incurable. energy systems that were 10 times more efficient than anything the Council possessed, materials stronger and lighter than any known alloy. But they also carried soldiers, human marines in their distinctive armor, serving as security for the trading vessels. They were polite and professional, but their presence was a constant reminder of what lay behind the friendly smiles and generous trade offers. Power. Overwhelming, unstoppable power. And the galaxy would never be the same again. 18 months had passed since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was learning to live with its new neighbors. Human traders had established routes across Council space. Human technology was slowly being integrated into alien systems. Human ambassadors sat in Council chambers, participating in debates and negotiations. It was not always smooth. Cultural differences caused misunderstandings. Some species remained deeply suspicious of the newcomers. There were protests on several worlds, citizens afraid of being absorbed or conquered by the powerful humans, but overall the integration was proceeding better than anyone had expected. Admiral Velrix had retired from active service, choosing to spend his remaining years on a peaceful colony world, far from the centers of power. He had done his duty. He had helped guide the galaxy through a difficult transition. Now he wanted rest. But the galaxy had other plans. He was sitting in his garden, watching the twin suns set over the mountains, when his communication device activated. The face that appeared on the screen was High Chancellor Morath, looking older and more tired than Velrix had ever seen him. "Admiral, I am sorry to disturb your retirement, but we need you." "What has happened?" "Something terrible. Something we cannot handle alone." An emergency session of the Council was called. Representatives from all 37 species gathered in the Grand Chamber, their expressions ranging from confused to terrified. Velrix took his place in the observers section, wondering what could have caused such panic. Chancellor Morath addressed the assembly. 3 days ago, our long-range sensors detected an anomaly in the outer rim. At first, we believed it was a natural phenomenon, a spatial distortion of some kind, but further analysis revealed the truth. The main display activated, showing a portion of space that Velrix did not recognize. At the center was a massive structure, larger than any station or ship he had ever seen. It was circular, with strange symbols carved into its surface that seemed to move and shift as he watched. "This is a gate," Morath continued, "a device created by unknown beings to allow instantaneous travel across vast distances. And 3 hours ago, something came through." The image changed. What appeared was a fleet. Hundreds of ships, each one designed with an aesthetic that was completely alien, sharp, organic shapes that looked almost grown rather than built, dark colors that absorbed light, and weapons. So many weapons. "The Endless," someone whispered from the assembly. It was an old name, something from ancient legends, a species that had supposedly terrorized the galaxy long before the Council was formed. Most historians considered them a myth. "They are not a myth," Morath said grimly. "They were real, and they have returned." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouting, demanding explanations, calling for action. Morath waited for silence before continuing. "The Endless were defeated by the ancestors of our founding species over 15,000 years ago. They were driven through the gate and sealed away. We believed the seal would hold forever. We were wrong." "How long do we have?" Ambassador Krill demanded. "How soon before they reach Council space?" "The gate is located 12 days from the nearest Council world. Based on their current movement speed, we estimate they will arrive in approximately 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Velrix felt his heart sink. The Council's military forces were scattered across thousands of light years. Even at maximum speed, they could not assemble in time to mount an effective defense. "What are our options?" another delegate asked. We have contacted our military commanders. They are working on a response. But I must be honest with you all. Our forces are not designed for this kind of conflict. We have maintained peace for 8,000 years by avoiding large-scale warfare. We do not have the ships or the weapons to fight an enemy of this magnitude. Then what do we do? Simply wait to be destroyed? The chamber fell silent. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council faced a threat it could not handle. All their wisdom, all their technology, all their cooperation meant nothing against an enemy that cared only for destruction. A voice spoke from the back of the chamber. Perhaps there is another option. Everyone turned. Standing in the human delegation section was a woman in a formal uniform. Velrix recognized her immediately. Captain Sarah Chen, now promoted to Admiral, the same officer who had first met him aboard the Unconquered. "Admiral Chen," Chancellor Morath said, "you wish to address the Council?" She stepped forward, her movements confident and controlled. "With your permission, Chancellor, I believe humanity can help." Murmurs spread through the assembly, some hopeful, others suspicious. Velrix watched Chen carefully, wondering what she was planning. "The Endless are approaching with approximately 400 ships of various classes," Chen said. "Our sensors have been tracking them since the gate opened. Their technology is advanced but not unbeatable. Their tactics appear to be straightforward. Mass assault, overwhelming force. They rely on numbers and aggression." "And what do you propose, Admiral?" Krill asked. "That your humans save us? Demonstrate your superiority once again?" Chen turned to face him. "No, Ambassador. I propose that we save each other. The Council has resources humanity lacks, experience, knowledge, logistics, and humanity has something the Council lacks. We know how to fight." She activated her own display, showing tactical maps and fleet dispositions. "Earth Defense Command can mobilize within 48 hours. We can have a full battle fleet in the target sector within 10 days. Combined with whatever forces the Council can assemble, we should have enough firepower to meet the Endless." "Should?" someone called out. "That is not certainty." "There is no certainty in war," Chen replied calmly. "But there is choice. We can choose to stand together and fight, or we can choose to stand apart and fall. Those are our options." The debate that followed was fierce. Many delegates distrusted the humans, fearing that helping them now would only make them more powerful in the future. Others argued that survival had to come first, that they could worry about politics later. In the end, necessity won. The Council voted to accept human assistance. A combined fleet would be assembled, humanity leading the military effort while Council species provided support and coordination. Admiral Velrix was asked to come out of retirement to serve as liaison between the human and Council forces. He accepted without hesitation. If this was to be the galaxy's last battle, he wanted to be there. The rendezvous point was an empty region of space, far from any inhabited world. Over the following days, ships arrived in waves. Council vessels from a dozen different species, each with their own designs and capabilities. Supply ships, medical vessels, communications platforms, and the humans. Velrix stood on the observation deck of his temporary flagship, watching the human fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel. One ship after another, appearing in flashes of distorted light. Cruisers, destroyers, frigates, carriers, and behind them, the dreadnoughts. Massive vessels that made the Unconquered look small. Ships that seemed to be made entirely of weapons and armor. They moved into formation with mechanical precision, each one taking its assigned position without any apparent communication. Admiral Chen commanded from her flagship, the Indomitable. It was the largest ship in the fleet. A command dreadnought bristling with sensor arrays and communication equipment. When she spoke, her voice carried across thousands of vessels. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. In 3 days we will meet the Endless in battle. I will not pretend this will be easy. Many of us will not survive. But what we do here matters. We are not fighting for territory or resources. We are fighting for survival, for the right of every species in this galaxy to exist." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Our ancestors faced this enemy 15,000 years ago and won. They did it by working together, by putting aside their differences and standing united. Today, we will do the same, human and Kethrani, Dorothy and Veltari, all of us together, and when this is over, the Endless will learn what happens when they threaten our galaxy." The fleet moved out the next morning. Hundreds of ships in formation, a wall of metal and energy stretching across the darkness of space. Velrix had never seen anything like it. The combined might of the entire galaxy, assembled for one purpose. At the front of the formation were the human warships. They had insisted on taking the most dangerous position, facing the enemy head-on, while council vessels provided flanking support. It was a generous offer, but Velrix suspected it was also practical. Human ships were simply more durable than anything the council possessed. They reached the combat zone on the third day. The Endless fleet was waiting for them, spread out in a loose sphere around the gate. Up close, their ships were even more disturbing. The organic appearance was not just aesthetic. These vessels were partially alive, their hulls pulsing with some kind of biological energy. "All ships, hold position," Chen ordered. "Let them make the first move." They waited. Minutes passed, then hours. The two fleets faced each other across the void, neither willing to commit. Finally, the Endless attacked. They came in waves, hundreds of ships surging forward in coordinated assault. Weapons fired, sending beams of dark energy across the battlefield. The first impacts struck the human vanguard, splashing against shields that flared brilliant white under the strain. "All ships, engage." The battle began in earnest. Velrix watched from his command station as the human warships advanced to meet the enemy. Their weapons fired in continuous streams, pulse cannons and missile batteries and energy lances tearing into the Endless formation. Council vessels provided support, targeting enemies that got past the main line. It was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. Ships died on both sides, exploding into clouds of debris that drifted through the combat zone. The Endless fought with savage intensity, throwing themselves at the defenders without regard for casualties. They seemed to have no fear, no hesitation, only hunger. But the humans were holding, more than holding. They were pushing back. Their tactics were aggressive but controlled, their ships moving in patterns that maximized firepower while minimizing exposure. When an Endless vessel got too close, human marines boarded and fought hand-to-hand, clearing enemy ships with brutal efficiency. Velrix realized he was witnessing something remarkable. These humans, these young newcomers to the galactic stage, were fighting as if they had been doing it for millennia, because in a sense, they had. Their entire history had been one long war, training them for exactly this moment. The battle lasted for 18 hours. By the end, both fleets were devastated. The Endless had lost over 300 ships, their force reduced to scattered remnants fleeing back toward the gate. The combined fleet had suffered as well, over 100 vessels destroyed and many more damaged. But they had won. Admiral Chen's voice came over the communications system, tired but triumphant. "All ships, secure from battle stations. The enemy is in full retreat. I repeat, the enemy is in full retreat." Cheers erupted across the fleet. Species that had been strangers a year ago celebrated together, their shared victory binding them in ways that diplomacy never could. Velrix found himself weeping, tears running down his scaled face. He had expected to die today. Instead, he had witnessed the birth of something new, a true alliance, forged not in conference rooms, but in fire and blood. In the aftermath, the combined fleet moved to secure the gate. Human engineers worked alongside council scientists to study the device, eventually finding a way to seal it permanently. The Endless would not return. The journey home was somber but hopeful. Every ship carried wounded and dead, the cost of victory measured in lives lost. But they also carried stories, tales of courage and sacrifice that would be told for generations. Admiral Chen visited Velrix's ship during the return journey. They sat together in his quarters, sharing a drink in silence for a long time. "You fought well," Velrix finally said. "Your people saved us all." "We fought together," Chen replied. "That is what saved us." She looked out at the stars, her expression thoughtful. 18 months ago, I told you that humanity hoped for friends among the stars, but prepared for enemies. Today, we found both, and we discovered something else as well. What is that? That we do not have to face the darkness alone. That there are others out here who share our values, our hopes, our fears. That is worth more than any fleet of warships. Velrix nodded slowly. He thought about the Council, about its 8,000 years of peace. That peace had been built on avoidance, on careful diplomacy that prevented conflicts but never truly resolved them. The humans had shown them another way. Not peace through weakness, but peace through strength, through the willingness to fight for what mattered. "What happens now?" he asked. "Between our peoples?" Chen smiled, a genuine expression that softened her warrior's face. "Now we build something better. The Endless were just the first test. There will be others. The galaxy is vast and full of dangers, but together, I believe we can face whatever comes." She stood and extended her hand, a human gesture of respect that Velrix had learned to appreciate. He took it, feeling the warmth of her grip. "Partners, Admiral Velrix, not rulers and subjects, not conquerors and conquered, partners." "Partners," he agreed. Months later, the Grand Council chamber was full once again. But this time, the mood was different. Representatives from 38 species now sat in the assembly, humanity having been granted full membership following their actions in the war. Admiral Velrix stood at the podium, delivering a speech that would be remembered for centuries. "We stand at a turning point in galactic history. For thousands of years, we maintained peace by avoiding conflict. We told ourselves that war was beneath us, that we had evolved beyond violence. And then the Endless came, and we learned the truth. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the willingness to fight for what matters." He gestured to the human delegation, where Admiral Chen sat with her fellow officers. "Humanity showed us what we had forgotten. That strength is not something to fear or hide. That those who prepare for the worst are often the ones who achieve the best. They came to us with weapons that could have conquered us all. Instead, they offered friendship. And when darkness threatened, they stood beside us and fought." He paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives. 38 species, billions of individuals, all of them watching, waiting. The galaxy has changed. The humans are here now, and they are not going away. Some of you may still fear them. That is understandable. Their power is beyond anything we have known. But I have seen them in action. I have fought beside them, and I believe, with all my hearts, that they mean what they say. He turned to face the human delegation directly. "You asked to be treated as equals. Today, you are more than that. You are heroes. You are allies. You are family. The Galactic Council welcomes humanity, not as newcomers to be watched with suspicion, but as partners in the great work of building a better future." The chamber erupted in applause. Even the most skeptical delegates joined in, recognizing the truth of Velrix's words. The humans had proven themselves, not through diplomacy or negotiation, but through sacrifice. Admiral Chen stood and bowed to the assembly, a gesture of respect that meant more than any words could express. Outside the chamber, in the darkness of space, a new kind of fleet patrolled the borders of Council space. Human warships flying alongside vessels from a dozen other species. Young crews from different worlds serving together, learning from each other, becoming something new. They were no longer strangers. They were defenders. Guardians of a galaxy that had finally learned to stand united. And somewhere in the vast emptiness between stars, other eyes watched with interest. Other minds calculated and planned. The galaxy was still full of dangers, threats that even the combined fleet could not imagine. But for the first time in millennia, the galaxy was ready. Because now it had humanity on its side, and humanity had never lost a war that mattered.